All right, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock. Today, we have a special guest. I say that all the time, but I do believe that all our guests are special because they have something of value to offer us and to teach us. So today, we have Dr. Vuyane Mhlomi. How are you? I hope you're good. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Off the Clock.
Thank you for having me. I was about to say, please call me Vuyane. Lovely to be here, and looking forward to our engagement.
Again, welcome. I really just want to, from me, welcome you to Off the Clock. Why don't you just take some time to, tell our listeners, our viewers, who you are, what do you do, every day to deserve to be off the clock.
My name is Vuyane. It means be happy to those who may not be familiar with the Xhosa language. My name is, written very differently to the traditional way you write Vuyane. So for the most part, many people write it with an I. Mine is spelled with an E. It was a Home Affairs era that I really felt special when I realized I was the only one, until I went on Facebook and realized that, again, many people have the same era in their, this misspelling era in their names.
So this is a common thing.
This is a very common thing. And I'm a healthcare entrepreneur. I'm a doctor by training. I studied medicine at UCT, having grown up in Khayelitsha, which is a massive township in Cape Town. I then came up to work at Baragwanath Hospital, where I did my internship in ComServe, before heading off to Oxford, where I read a PhD first in cardiovascular medicine and an MBA at the Said Business School. Shortly after, I started a company called Curo Medical in 2018, which I co-founded alongside some of the young, best, brilliant, bright talent that I think our world actually has to offer. And on a day-to-day basis, I try and find ways to transform healthcare for our people.
Wow, accolades. So, how do you generally view life? Do you see life as kind of a glass half empty or half full? What's your perspective?
Life is always a glass half full. When you grow up in an environment where, and I guess circumstances that are designed to always remind you of how life is half empty, you are forced to learn to teach yourself and to look for moments for where life is half full. And I think over the years, it's been ingrained, in me, to always look at life as through an optimistic lens, notwithstanding your circumstances, right? Yeah. And so for me, life is, believe it or not, always half full.
Very optimistic person. So, just tell me a little bit, because I kind of know you, more than you think I do, because I care about the work that you do, because it kind of intertwined with what I do as well. Just tell me, how's your sleep like? Do you sleep well? You look like a very happy guy who's eating well. Do you sleep well as well?
I think I'm happy because I sleep, right? So it's Matthew Walker says sleep is the what's the word? He says it's a free drug, or rather performance enhancing drug, right? It's a free performance enhancing drug. Yeah. And I take that to heart, right? One of the things I do not compromise actually is sleep. I do 7 to 8 hours a day solid. I go to bed usually by 8:30, 9:30 I am gone. If you try to reach me, there's a problem, call the fire brigades, call the police, call the ambulance, right? But I'm usually up by 4:30 in the morning to start my training regime. And but yeah, sleep is something that is very, very important to me. And I can sleep anywhere at any time. I can sleep standing. It's the most bizarre thing. When fatigue hits and it's time for me to sleep, I have no problem sleeping.
You
Okay.
two sound like you have that in common.
Yeah, that's it's common strength across the two of us. Let me just follow up on that. I mean, any stress, any stresses? Is there anything that keeps you awake at night? I mean, you sleep well? Do you wake up? Anything that would wake you up?
Well, I mean, I guess anyone that runs or leads people, and frankly, any person that has responsibilities, I think, suffer from some form of stress. But I do think it's about how do you manage that. I think one of the things I'm really good at is managing stress. If you look at my kind of own journey, I've always been in an environment, either professionally or personally, where I've had to contend with very stressful scenarios or situations. And one of the things that I always try and do to myself, one of the things I've always challenged myself to do is always try to do hard things.
Yeah.
So, for example, I never used to be a good runner. In fact, I used to hate long distance running because I never understood what people think about beyond 5 kilometers, right? And so
I'm you from the past.
so after kind of engaging in a lot of mindfulness exercises and I started doing 15, 21 Ks. Now I can put on my shoes, I'm on the road. And then my new challenge this year is, how to become an even better swimmer, right? And so as part of the preparation for half Ironman in June this year.
Half
Ironman.
Only half?
For now, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. Did cycling last year. And one of the things I knew I wasn't good at was swimming. So I challenged myself to kind of do that and to focus on a goal. And I think thinking in that way has really allowed me to manage stress really well, in that training and athleticism has become a space where I can reflect and process my thoughts. I meditate, so that's helpful. I go to therapy once a week, not because I'm in trouble, but to really create a space where I can, really share my thoughts without having to subject my poor friends to being, therapists, right? So all of those things have been like really, really helpful. And then of course cultivating good and healthy relationships that allow me to kind of share the things I'm going through.
So yeah, let's get in it. Do you have a family? You married with kids?
No and no. So not married, no kids.
Okay, you're still kind of on the way there. Okay.
Well, I mean, just very quickly to respond to that. I mean, I do think that I've got a very healthy risk appetite, right? Which I think is important to have as an entrepreneur.
Just unpack that because
a healthy risk appetite
means a lot
in
of
that
things to many people.
I think I tend to be very daring in my pursuits, right, and my endeavors, right. I will go and start a business that is designed to transform my healthcare delivery model, and I will not kind of piecemeal it, right? I'll go in there and take it to the full extent of whatever it is, right? I will. I think in my activities, like it won't just be enough to be a good runner, right? I will want to do the half Ironman and then the Ironman, kind of take that to its boundaries. And the same thing is true, I guess, around business, right? And I will try out the things that many people will second guess, like are you sure? Like, would you not prefer to go down the academic route? And that was initially the plan, right? To be a cardiologist, right? When I went to varsity, and before you knew it, I had of course got bitten by the entrepreneurship bug, and I find myself here. But what I find also is that every time you commit to something where you add people, it changes your risk profile, right? So I find that some of my friends and my colleagues who are married, they can't take those kind of risks, right, that one would ordinarily take, because when you lose your money, the impact is on others as well, right? So, and then you add an additional layer of complexity, and you bring kids. And so every time you have to think about a certain business decision, you're now not just thinking about yourself, you have to think about everybody else.
So you're not ready.
I don't think I am ready. I am in a long-term relationship that I am very kind of settled into and very happy. And if it's not broken, don't fix it.
It's not about being broken. It's about getting to the next level. I mean, in a relationship, it's you have to commit, right?
And I'm committed.
Sign on the dotted lines and dress up. And I know that a lot of people have kind of a different perspective to that. But good luck. I mean, I'm sure you're not getting enough pressure to commit. But I mean, it's personal. I understand.
Just on this, we're having conversation with some friends about marriage, right? And one of the things that I always find interesting is that people will be involved in a great relationship, then they get married, and then it's downhill from there, right? And
scare you, man.
No, I don't mean to scare you at all. I haven't been there, man. So you can. I'm sure you've got an excellent.
Don't worry, I have a good example.
I was also you've got an excellent example of why to go into it, right? But I think for me, what I always find is that what people don't appreciate, and again, it's a personal perspective. And I'm always very careful when I say these things on public platforms. But to me, marriage is an institution, right? With its T's and C's. And often I think people don't think about that when they are subscribing to this institution, there are other things at times you just haven't had the time to work through in your existing relationships that you kind of chance upon in this institution of marriage. And if you are just not ready to contend with it, I think some people struggle, right? And they drown as a result. And so I think given where I am comfortable in entering into agreements that if people want commitment, I can demonstrate that commitment without necessarily having to subscribe to the institution as yet. And I'm not saying I'm not going to get married. I think it's a beautiful
you're not ready.
institution when it works, right?
Yeah.
But I also think there are other avenues that can be explored, and I think I'm willing to explore those avenues at this stage. What do you find special about marriage?
I look at this. I mean, this is special, right? The fruits of marriage is kids, extended family, and stuff like this. My experience is my experience. Yours is yours. Yeah. And I mean, there's no kind of one way, right?
Sure.
Some people kind of want to play and do, like you taking a lot of risk and do a lot of stuff, like deciding to not to carry a big bag when you're going to run. So just run freely.
Travel light
and all that. When you're ready, you can put the weight on your shoulders. So I chose different. I decided to start early, avoid the rush, have the kids when in my early 20s, and look at this. I can do podcasts with my son.
That is pretty cool.
And spend time with them and see, hopefully, grandkids later, and full life without, hitting 60 and 70 and worried and all that. So I brag about my experience as having those right choices early, and which may not be good for the next person. So, I mean, good luck.
I felt that was a subtweet. Start early.
I feel like what you said was very insightful. Because you also have like the proof to prove that your decision, especially that you're happy about your decision, and like I guess I'm the proof, because it's like you're my son, like I raised you, you're my legacy and all that, and that's good. But also I think we must also say, like, it wasn't easy, right? Marriage isn't easy, right? It's a lot of work you have to put in to make it work. You have to be committed and all that. Not that I'm saying you went through the toughest of times. I'm just saying you know the work you have to put into to being married.
I mean, look, everybody kind of carry their cross. And it's choice, right?
Yeah.
I know some people who got married very late because they looked at their families and siblings and say, I want to help them out because my parents cannot do that, and I delay, sacrifice a little bit. I was able to make that choice, and you don't have kids and have marriage because it's easy. It's always hard. And there are days when you want to divorce. There are days when you delay going home, to face the music. And that's not because marriage is impossible. It's just life.
Yeah.
And think about my work, your work. I mean, all what you do is to deal with challenges. Life is very much, like that. It's how you deal with them. If you want to relax all the time, it's something else. So, marriage is, staying up at night, raising you, crying, having, I don't know, diarrhea or having to deal with that and making feeds and taking you for immunization and school and all that. It's a very special experience for every parent.
Yeah.
So I'm not scaring you guys, but when you're ready.
So earlier you said you had a very, a big risk appetite. So what is the most adventurous thing that you've done?
Now that I've done it, I thought at the time it was the most adventurous thing, but after I'd done it, it wasn't. I did hang gliding again in
That
Rio.
sounds cool.
Sorry, I did hang gliding and it was like the wildest experience. But in retrospect, I was like, because I'm a big kind of adrenaline junkie. I was like, I'm sure I can do something else that's more exhilarating. So I think that was it.
Where did you do the hang gliding?
Rio.
Okay, I was about to say, is it something that happened in Brazil?
Any excuse to go to South America, I think it's just an absolute. I think it's just an incredible destination to travel to.
You just been to Brazil, or you've been to Chile, Argentina, Peru, Guatemala, Mexico?
Only for safety reasons that I haven't gone. Every time it's been cancelled is purely because there were safety concerns. But there's always been every single intention. So there are now guys who apparently organize a secure and fully paid, a secure and full package like trip that takes you through the different countries. And that is something that a few of us are actively looking at the moment. The last thing I need is to be kidnapped and struggle to get back. And so for me, even though I'm very adventurous, safety is a big consideration. I always need to find a way to get back.
That's funny because you said you grew up in what, Gugs or Kailicha?
In Kailicha.
And I mean, that's probably, after Mitchell's Plain, is the roughest place on the planet.
I've had my fair share of hostility and being mugged and having to, walk around with an elevated kind of resting heart rate. So one of the things that I realized when I was in, when I was in the UK is that every time I landed at Waratambo, my heart rate would go up, and vice versa when I landed at Heathrow. But I think I've had my fair share of my time in the hood, and I think as people we just need to be discerning. I don't think one kind of walks through. I don't know, Alex and because you grew up in Kailicha, right? I think if anything, it makes you a lot more street smart and aware and to constantly just look out for your surroundings.
Did you only have this view of South America once you had been to Brazil, or was it always is a dream of yours to always go to South America?
I think I've always found the people interesting. And I think I had my own kind of hypothesis of what the place would be. And I think it's the one place that lived up to the expectations. I remember when I did a Euro trip with my friend, right? A lot of the places did not live up to the hype that I was kind of hoping for.
Okay.
And we went to every single place. I think people there are places where you need to curate very expensive experiences for you to enjoy them, right?
Okay.
The good thing about, I guess, even South America, which is very much like South Africa in many ways, is that you don't need to have the big bucks to really enjoy the best parts of the place, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons I quite liked it. the best parts of the place. Mpumalanga, if you're in Cape Town, forget if you're traveling from Joburg to Cape Town, but once you're there, I think your ability to go through some of the nice beaches does not cost you that much, and to have those experiences could make the same case about the Eastern Cape and many other parts.
What is an experience you've had from your past that's had a lasting impact on who you are today? I know I said before this I wouldn't ask you questions that would have to make you think so much.
No. And I just want to make sure that I'll actually answer that question honestly. And I guess it's a good, reference to what we were speaking about earlier. And I'd say it was the death of my father. I was 11 years old, and he died 2 days before my birthday.
Sorry, man. Sorry about that.
No, it's life, right? And just the kind of and I think the impact on me was seeing the impact that his death had on my mom and the family, and how we all needed to show up differently if we were to survive, right? And I think in many ways that has kind of contributed to my journey into medicine, to how I show up for my family today, and kind of being able to support and be present for my family, to how I relate with many others who are kind of going through kind of similar circumstances. It's a reminder of just how short life is and how unfair life is. It has had a fundamental and a profound impact on my life and how I view it, and most importantly, how I relate with others.
Okay.
Wow, that's a very powerful experience and painful at the same time. You obviously, been very, very ambitious, achieved a lot of things, and I'm sure you've made it to first cover magazines and all that stuff and all that. How did you find few steps that have kind of kept you going for more? Because sometimes, business founders like yourself, you kind of get one thing going, you like relax a little bit and sit back. What is driving you?
I guess my own philosophy includes a number of, views on life, and one of which is the best version of yourself should always be in the future, right? Like, don't be the steward of past success. It's one of the reasons why even when I meet my patients, I'm like, hey, I'm Vuyane. Like, you don't need to call me Dr. Mhlomi, etc. Like, I'm the doctor. Like, I get it, but that's my achievement, and there are a few more things to achieve. And so I always try, and even within our own organization, right? And that's why we remain so innovative. I mean, everyone today is busy celebrating the strategy that we had set 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Wow, yeah.
Right now, we are working on things that are like super exciting, yet to come, that people are going to celebrate in five years to come, right? And so the best version of you should always be in the future. And that's something I've always kind of focus on. I guess the second thing is, my desire to leave the world better than how I found it. I think I have been a beneficiary of the contributions of many others in those that have made positive contributions to the world. I'm not talking about detractors, but I think I've got an obligation to leave it in a much better state, but also to ensure that in how I live today, I make it as pleasant as possible for those that I kind of cohabit with. And I just find that if we all thought like that, the world would be, a much better place. And in order for me to do that, I must look for opportunities to consistently improve myself. And this is not just about acquiring accolades, right? I think fundamentally, it comes down to, how I see the world personally, right? And for example, being healthy is an important consideration for me. And like, I'm not trying to advertise discovery, but vitality is an important part, of me, right? So like, I love life. I want to live life to its fullest. But even when I'm 90, I want to be full of life, right? I don't want to get to kind of that age, struggling. And so, and therefore that requires a certain level of maintenance, not just of myself, but also engage in activities that require me to maintain, I guess the world that I exist in, and then I think COVID is a perfect example of how we may choose to not invest in developing countries at our own peril, right? And that infections do not know borders, right? And so here you've got an example where you've got a virus that is ravishing nations, and our ability to contain it is dependent on strengthening each other, right? And so if we really applied the same thing around, and we've seen communities, for example, that have invested in each other and invested in themselves, and invested in others, to turn out to be a whole lot stronger. And so the same principles have applied personally, which is improve yourself, improve others, and recycle privilege, right? So you're not just recycling wealth, like you're also recycling privilege, in that where you find yourself in a more privileged position than someone else, you have the obligation to create opportunities for others.
What is your view on mental health, especially mental health with people like in your position, like entrepreneurs, business leaders, and all that? Because mental health it's still somewhat of a new thing, right? Like, let's say 15 years ago, this wasn't a topic of discussion in work culture, right? So someone who's also a doctor, I know you're a cardiologist, but doctor still, what is your view on the whole thing, especially in the position that you hold?
Yeah. So I'm not a cardiologist, I just have a PhD in the subject, right? But I think people were just dying in silence. So it's not that it was just not topical. It was there. People were dying, and they were just dying in silence. I think what's happened now is we're started raising a great deal of awareness. I think people are a lot more kind of conscious about that. In terms of my own personal life, I have been very, very fortunate in that I've got an incredible board that is super supportive, that recognize that I'm human before I am a business person. And, when we actually have those conversations, they have an appreciation that I'm building a business in a much broader context. At a personal level, I have always foregrounded my mental health. So I am always very intentional to kind of protect that. So be it the lifestyle I lead, or kind of having therapy, and also I am not going to sit with issues for long, right? I will come in and I will share, right? And I will speak about how I feel, and I think that's something that's been very helpful. And then the other thing is that I think I've got a great deal of kind of self-awareness. And there was one thing I remember I used to do, where I used to kind of assess every day kind of my capacity. I'm like, I'm at 100 today, I'm at 90 today, and right? And I'd always act, for example, when I am at 60%, I'm like, okay, chap, now you need to do something, because I know that going from 60, you don't go to 40 or to 50, you go to 20, right?
Okay,
and so it's a much it's a lot steeper, and as a result, I've always kind of engaged in the kind of activities that keep me very, very functional, foregrounding my mental health, being mindful, and I think knowing when to say no, and being able to say, it is what it is, right? It's not because I haven't tried, it's not because I understand what the implications in that, and sometimes you just need to kind of have those spaces where you can speak to people, engage in activities that keep you well, and keep talking about it. And I think the challenge we have today is that people don't have and don't work in spaces where their mental health is considered, right? For example, in my organization, we have mental health days, right? So you don't have to be sick to take a day off, Like you'll be able to say, look, I am taking a mental health day. You don't have to explain that to yourself to your manager. You don't like I'm done for the day. Like I'm good, right? I just need some time. And we used to think it would be abused. Not at all, right?
Okay.
And usually when people do take it, they actually do take it to kind of reflect, to do those things like, whatever the case may be. And then as a result, they're able to show up. And the second thing that became important for us is like building a very healthy culture within our own organization, because we recognize that, people usually do 7 to 80% of their time is often spent at work or doing something work related. And so as a leadership team, we have an obligation to create a healthy work environment. And that can come in with how we cultivate that is how we identify the people that come in, what people have access to and even then it's, instilling a lot more preventative measures as opposed to waiting for our people to crash before they tap into that. And that for us runs right through to the highest kind of leadership team, which is to the CEO's office, where we then learn, where my company realized that, and I guess also realized that my greatest asset is my mind, right? Mm-hmm. And if I don't participate in work that protects it, both what I value and what the shareholders have invested in is at stake. Right. Yeah. And so it is in everyone's interest to ensure that that remains healthy.
Okay. With what you've said, you reminded me of something that happened back in school. So when you said you check in on yourself, so you say, today I'm feeling 100%, today I'm feeling 80, 60, 40, 20, 0. Okay. In grade 5, I remember this correctly. In grade 5, our teacher used every morning, when the teacher walks in, you have to stand by your desk. We're standing up to greet her. She greets us back. Then she'd ask everyone, how's everyone feeling? And because we were her like primary class, she said that from the beginning of the year, when she asked that question, you put up your hand and you say either you're feeling a 5, 4, 3, all the way to a 1. And I'm only clocking that now that I don't even know if she probably was checking how like children are feeling, but at the same time, it's also like a good way to gauge how people are mentally, because a lot of people come in every day, I'm 5. And I get it, you're a kid, but also at the same time, you're not always going to be a 5. And when I was in grade 5, it was the year my grandfather died, passed away. It was when you died, your father. And I remember, I think it was, I still had a week of school to go to before the funeral. So one of the days where, I think it was the first day I was at school where I knew this information and all that. And I was very hesitant to be like, because I'm not okay. My grandfather passed away. I was like, am I going to put a 1, but I don't want that attention in class. Am I going to do it? But I still did it. And and then she's like, why are you feeling that way? And I said, my grandfather passed away. And it was like, everyone is there to like comfort you, console you, say they're sorry and all that. Teacher came and gave me a hug. And I think it made the day better going through. But I think that whole thing of checking in with you, and it also makes me think my grade 5 teacher was actually an amazing teacher for doing that, because she's not only is she teaching you, she's checking up on the well-being of the people that she's teaching, and not neglecting that, because that was an everyday thing. You have to do it every day. She asks you, how are you feeling? So I think
that's actually brilliant.
She's a legend, man. You need to go find her.
Yeah, but no, the whole thing of it brought me back. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I forgot this. And the impact it was meant to have, from whether she knew it or didn't. But and this was a time where mental health wasn't even a thing. It's like 2007.
It's quite interesting, because that's one of the things I do. And I think it's just so important. So it's one of the things I do in most of my meetings in the company. I do check-ins with my team before we start the meeting. So if we record them, pre-recording, be like, check in. Literally, they know, like, but some of them have even reminded me, like, oh, we haven't done a check-in, right? So you check in, and I think it achieves 2 things. One is it gives you a sense, and everybody else in the room, about where people are at. But the other thing is that it forces you as the person to know what you are checking in with,
Yes,
So
to
it-
reflect.
Yeah, so it brings it to your consciousness so that it doesn't distract you throughout the meeting. So whatever it is that this is troubling you before, because you're more mindful, it brings it to your consciousness. And then one of the things I found is that as a result, people are less distracted, right? Because now they know that I need to pause and check, what am I checking into this meeting with? And then even when we're done, kind of the checkout, right? And I always find that to be like super helpful ways that, because sometimes corporations don't look into things except to the extent that it benefits them.
Yeah.
And actually just doing the right thing, something as simple as kind of checking in on your people, doing mental health days, creating a healthy working environment, increases your productivity. Your people tend to be a lot happier, and you have fewer absenteeism, for example, at work. And those are the things that people prefer to quantify. But I wish I could meet your teacher, and I quite like the.
Yeah, and it also
the number,
saves you
yeah.
time from like going on a ramble on how you actually feel. It's like it's very representative of 4, 3. You're relatively good. So when you get down to 2 and 1, it's like something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something bothering.
Also
you,
just
all
making it
those things.
accessible to the kids as well, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially at that early stage, early age.
And also, I also wanted to ask, like, within your business, because you spoke about you're always trying to improve yourself, and I guess that also goes, that attitude also translates within the business. You're always trying to improve. How do you also, you do all these great things, especially for the mental health of your people, like you really do try and take care of them. How do you see yourself improving upon a good system that you have of taking care of your people?
Jeez. Like I always believe in like feedback, and knowing what works, right? So sitting down with psychologists could be exceptionally therapeutic for me. It may not necessarily work for someone for cultural reasons, right? And so just always constantly identifying feedback, getting feedback, and being responsive to the needs of your people is something I always find important. And because we recognize that people's needs change each time, your solutioning to that challenge should equally change, and not say, well, our policy in the organization is to have one mental health day, and this is what we pay for, and this is what we've got access to, etc. But you actually come back and check in and be like, does this actually work? Should we or could we be doing something very differently? And that being said, like, I completely get it. It may be very easy to do it in a relatively small organization like the one I run. I can't imagine how difficult it is when you're running a massive organization like Medtronic, right? And so, and so you sit there and be like, yes, young man, grow, because I can't imagine how difficult it is. And I think it's precisely why I am kind of leaning into the opportunity, because I know it will become more and more difficult, I guess, as the business grows. But what I'm trying to entrench is a culture that responds to the needs of employees, even as the organization grows.
Okay.
So I think, with that, just want to take your parting shots from this, because it's really been very, very deep, very insightful discussions off the clock. What are your parting shots?
I guess it's one of gratitude to both of you for setting up this podcast, and I guess shining a spotlight in recognizing that what often takes place outside there is that we are reduced to the roles in what we do, and that actually there's more to us, to what we do, and there are certain things that are important to our existence. And I think what this does is really create an opportunity to highlight that, and I guess to demonstrate the importance of leading whatever version of balanced, life there is, in order for you to be able to show up in these roles that everybody highlight and celebrate you for. So really my parting shot is one of gratitude, and long may it continue.